we drove for 2 days there, and then we had 6 days to work. For having 26 of us, that wasn't enough time to do all the work we did. We painted and primed 2 houses, we primed and painted a church, and we roofed one of the houses. Now that's a lot of work to do in 6 days, or when you only had 4 to 5 hours to work a day. When we would start painting and priming, first we had to start off by scraping the house, by getting all the loose paint that was left behind from the previous paint job. And that took probably a day on some of the houses, and then we would have to first prime it and then let that dry for a little bit, and then go over the paint. That took a while. That was probably the longest job we had to do. And then we would have to roof a house. So while there was some people scraping, painting, and priming, there would be people on top of the roof, pulling shingles off the house, throwing them down, and dust and dirt was flying everywhere. If you were working on the roof, you were a mess. First you had to pull off all the shingles, then the tar paper, and every day before work ended, you had to put new tar paper on so that if there was a storm that night, which most nights there were storms, that the water wouldn't go into the house and soak the wood and make the wood molded. So we finally finished that on the last day, the roofing. We finished the whole house on the roof, and we finished painting the whole house and most of the church. There were only a few spots that we couldn't get on the church. But before we could start painting or scraping and doing the roof, we had to mow the lawn. The lawn hasn't been mowed in years, so it's probably like 2 or 3 feet high. So that took a while to do. And then after our long days of work, we would go down to the river some days and cool off, play frisbee, and mess around at the river, and then we'd head to the high school for showers. Now those showers were really nice for our high school. We all had our own stalls. It was great because there was no running water at the reservation. So,
Yeah, it works for many people too. So I'm Simon, and one of the things that I just love about this church is the community that we have established. I've recently noted that I come here more than my parents do, and being a 16-year-old child, that is a miracle. So just this past week at Vacation Bible School, many adults volunteered and to help preach the Word of God. And throughout the year, there are many different church events, whether it is just cleanups or social gatherings. And on this mission trip, the 26 Washichus, which is the Dakota word for white people, got thrown into a whole other community filled with about 9,000 people. On the first Sunday when we arrived on the reservation, we went to a powwow, and we were introduced to the reservations. The powwow MC, Tony Bobtailbear, said that none of the Washichus had seen an Indian before, so we shouldn't scare them, which is probably true for the most of us. But what was really special about this trip is how welcome we were into their community. From the start, we were welcomed into their social gathering, which they have about once a year. And throughout the week, members from their church, families even, came by and helped us do our work and connected with us. Father Rob, the priest on the reservation, was there from the start and was even generous enough to invite 5 of us into his house for showers after our car got a flat tire and we weren't able to take showers at the high school with the rest of the group. Gladys Hawk, a respected elder, hung out with us every night and taught us some things about the Dakota culture, like the foods they make and how it's passed on through generation. And even Tony Bobtailbear came by and in his 2-hour lecture taught us about powwows and sun dances and their significance. One of the things that touched me on this trip was that one day we went to a cookout in a park and we were hanging out with the Dakota, and a couple of young kids, aged about 5 or maybe even younger, came and started playing frisbee with us. And now the parents just let them play with us because they trusted us due to the work that we did and how much they've heard of us and how fast word has spread. And that was really special to me. And admittedly, we could have done more work, but we still did an insane amount of work. But the main question is, where do we go on from here? Many of the elders were pleading us to return, and a good portion of us, myself included, want to go back. In a community that's filled with poverty and commonly filled with grief, we provided a spark, a beacon of hope that they humbly recognize. If a bunch of city kids wanted to go out and help out, there's no reason that more would come out here. Spending this past week at VBS made me realize that there truly is still hope. By putting our kids in these types of programs, we teach them at an early age about God's love and sharing it throughout the world. My hope is that these kids will follow in our footsteps and truly go out into the world and help others share God's love. One of my favorite sayings is that it only takes a spark to get a fire going, and I feel that now it is true more than ever. All of us had a ton of fun on this trip, and we're going to tell our friends about it, and maybe next year we can go back with even more people. We can slowly work our way not only to improving the community here, or at Standing Rock, but at the world itself. And lastly, I want to thank all of you guys for all the support that you gave us, not only this year, the last years, and for every year to make our trips a success. And I've shared this with some of you, but we raised $1,006 through our coin jar, so both Stephen McHale and Bruce Smith have to perform a song of our choice and do an interpretive dance, which will be coordinated by Marshall Crawford. And it's going to be all in front of the congregation. Sure to put out a month's warning in advance so you can go home and circle your calendars and purchase that shiny new video camera you have all been saving up for, because this is going to be really, really, really funny. Amen.